Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy Love. How are you?
Kia ora, Pat. I am snug as a bug in a rug. Good old, you doing the job.
I was thinking the other day how I sometimes come and say, "G'day, love. How you doing?" I was thinking in some other day. I don't do it for this reason, but at some stage I'm going to say that to a female. Hey, love. And they're going to be like, misogynist, sexist pig. And I'll go, nah. I say it to my hairy friend kind of 3 out of 4 nights of the week, so I don't think it's misogyny me saying it to you. It's probably more just bad habit. So you're my defense. I'm setting up a defense in the future to allow myself to be a sexist pig. That's what I'm doing.
Oh,
basically.
cool.
Yeah, so you're my defense. Hi, man.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
What's crack-a-lacking in your place?
Not a lot. It's cold. It's cold.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be surprising this time of year. I've been looking at the social media of my friends overseas having lovely summer cookouts and swimming in creeks and shit like that. It's mean. Don't have friends in different hemispheres. It's just makes things harder.
Yeah. It's July. I mean, it was July yesterday, but it's July. In about 5 minutes, it's going to be 2030. Honestly, it's July. What has happened to the space-time continuum, Chewy? You're an expert on this. Can you explain?
Yes. Time has had no meaning since the COVID lockdowns for me. Everything seems both not very long ago and ages ago at the same time.
That is interesting. So you know how they've changed AD and BC? It's now something like CE, and there's different names for it. So you're like, because, the time when time is split in the year 0, it's kind of the same for COVID, pre-COVID and post-COVID. That's the new time split in 2.
Here's an interesting thing.
So what are we? We're 3 PC. We're 3 PC. That's the year now.
As a
3PC.
45-year-old man, there's probably 2 big events in my life that you would divide things up over, and it's like pre and post 9/11 and pre and post COVID.
I thought you were going to say like pre and post your birth, like you are the Messiah, but you're not. You're just a very naughty boy. Is that what you're saying?
It was pretty important for me.
Oh, fair enough. And for those around you, and for everyone watching right now. I tell you what, the last few nights have been rightfully and correctfully heavy because of what we've been talking about. We are going to talk a bit about the Bob Vilan conversation tonight and what's going on in Gaza. But you will feel uplifted by the conversation tonight because we're going to be featuring an interview, which is a really, really good interview. You can find it on YouTube. I should probably put it in the show notes. It's on a show on Channel 4 in the UK called The Fourcast, F-O-U-R, cast, as in Channel 4, Fourcast. And you've got Toby Young and Ash Sarkar actually having a bit of a conversation. And I don't believe, how some people are like, well, it's as long as we keep it civil. I don't believe that you have to keep civil. I don't accept that. Sometimes losing your rag is not only okay, it's appropriate. But it was, I'll be honest, it was refreshing to hear Ash. What did we hear the other night about TYT? What did Jink used to say? He used to say, rip out their spine and drink their spinal fluid. That used to be something that TYT say. And just without hesitation, with a very softly and gently spoken word, Ash Sarkar just wore him as a hat. That's our version, Chewy. And honestly, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little conversation that we'll show you. Not to mention all the stereotypes of a young black woman taking on an old dusty white man and all those little things that just kind of, this makes it, there's a bit of, look, there's a sprinkle on the top of this. There's a few hundreds and thousands there as well. Also, Paddy Gower. I don't know Paddy Gower. I've tried to connect with him a couple of times to come and do a podcast or this or that, and I've never really connected with him. I've never really had a positive or a negative to say about Paddy Gower. He's just been. Paddy's always been. He was very good when he did the debates at the last election for TV3. But, oh my God, the worst take in the world by any person who has ever existed about how fantastic billionaires are and how all they do is a positive impact on society and their wealth create. Oh my God, like Occam's razor, right? Occam's razor, the fewest number of assumptions to get to a conclusion. My Occam's razor basically said he's angling for a paycheck from a billionaire. Whether it's he wants to start his own independent media thing and a la, Plunkett wants a few million from it was just so weird. And I was going to say out of left field. The truth is probably out of right field, Chewy. It's bizarre. So we're going to feature it tonight if you haven't seen it. Sorry, Chewy.
I was just going to say, I don't think he's angling for anything as mighty as that. I think he'd be satisfied if one just wandered over and tousled his hair a little bit and told him he was being a good little boy. It's a weird fucking take. And I'm going to tip of the hat to the 16 of you that messaged me and said, Joey, have you seen this? I haven't heard you explode, so I don't think you've seen this. You should do it on the show.
That's because they want you to explode.
And it is because of you.
It's so interesting as well. You get all the people sending them to you because I think people who have done that to me in the past realize I don't open very much. So now you're getting all of it. And speaking of exploding, I've already showed you this, Chewy, but I'll show you everyone else. See my book there.
Look,
how it's
got there. Pat, put it away. Put it away.
Says foo-foo.
We're an unscripted show.
It says foo-foo.
You're ruining the illusion.
You haven't seen the clip I'm going to play, but that's the one you're going to explode in for me as well. So apparently someone wants you to explode over Paddy. I'm going to make you explode. Maybe tonight's going to be a bit more serious than I thought. Phrasing. Exploding over Paddy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I had a little bit of a teaser to you all last night. I said this week's Locked Out with Craig Rennie was going to have a world exclusive. TVNZ was watching us because what happened today is the world exclusive from Craig Rennie's podcast on Thursday morning. All of a sudden, TVNZ was interested in the story and they featured it tonight. So there's a story about Uber and the tax that Uber does and doesn't pay. That's what the story about. We're going to show you the One News story tonight. The One News story kind of featured the New Zealand angle only, whereas Craig's podcast, which we recorded this afternoon, talks at the whole global issue with Uber and what they do and how they're managing to pay no tax anywhere. And, it's a really interesting chat. But the story was floated around. It's with a colleague of Craig's called Ed Miller, was floated around and nobody was interested. And then just for some reason today, just out of the blue, TVNZ contacts him and wants to talk to Ed about this Uber story that's going around at the moment. So, so that they don't even know this because they didn't feature the international stuff, but they had a world exclusive today. They didn't feature it as like an exclusive or anything at all. The information they got hadn't been heard anywhere before. But as I said, they were only featuring the New Zealand side of it. It's the international side of it, which will come out on Craig's podcast tomorrow morning for your breakfast. You can listen to it over your breakfast tomorrow morning, whānau. So I'll show you a little bit of what Craig's done this morning, a little bit of a teaser of the introduction. Then we'll also have a look at the TVNZ story. Is there anything else, Chewy, that we need to sort out before we start the show? Other than people are now insisting that you bust a foo-foo. That sounds like a dance move, doesn't it? If you bust a foo-foo.
We'll see. Nothing that immediately springs to mind. I'm sure I'll remember something at an inconvenient time and blow the show's runtime out. But as I was telling you last night, that if we have another 1 hour 50 show this week, my wife is going to kick in the door and drag me by my ear out of the room. So we've got to be good. We've got to be quick.
Yep. Huge thanks to all of our patrons. So lovely to have you guys on board. We are blessed and lucky and thankful and whatever else that you guys are with us. I have said earlier in this week, probably by the end of next week, and it probably won't be this week, so probably next week, we are going to have another family meeting during the show, because what Chewy and I want to be able to do is go, okay, We need to have a plan until the end of next year, including the election. And I think that you guys are a part of this. As I've said before, people watching and people supporting are a part of what we do. You, especially the patrons, are how we project plan. So we're just going to have a bit of a talk about it. And if you're someone who's always thought, oh, maybe I should be a patron, we're not pitching for you to do it now, but what I'm asking you to do is have a think about if you have got any ability to be on board with us for the next 18 months. If you can't, don't stress. But if you can, if you want to think about that, this conversation will be coming up next week. Because as we said last night, Chewy, and when I listened back to it during my editing, it did feel a bit arrogant. But there is a part of me, having been involved in media, news media for maybe 15 years, but media, including radio, for more than 20 years, that realizes how essential something like this is. If it wasn't us, if there was another group doing the same thing and they were, growing and reaching people, cool. But there needs to be something like this for the next election. And I guess what I'm proposing is something like this is this. So we'll have a talk about that in the next wee while. Also, a few people obviously heard our little pitch last night for Nikki No Boats, because there was a few sticker orders and T-shirts that came in today. Everything's up on there at the moment. It's all pretty much just a standard price and a standard offering. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing. Your purchase goes directly towards the work that's been done to make BHN, Locked Out with Craig Rennie, and The Front Line with Dr. Gary Pinder, because that's what it does. The merch that you guys get to purchase and wear proudly helps us do all the things that we're doing. It's a bit of a shot in the arm, whereas the patrons are more like the things we can rely on for the future. Oakley dokley, neighbourino. Let's start with this story, because it's actually, maybe we can go in escalating we'll do that, We'll go escalating. We'll go from Uber to Paddy Gower to Channel 4, and then we'll take off into the night. So this story featured on TVNZ. I mean, you're probably aware of the New Zealand news story last year where 4 drivers won a case to say they aren't contractors. What they are is actually employees. That's a part of what's going around at the world at the moment. What's happening actually, Chewy, and I think this was mentioned after the podcast was finished. I didn't know this, but apparently what's happening at the moment is Brooke Van Velden is trying to pass legislation that says if you sign a contract as a contractor, you can only be a contractor, nothing else. So if a company hires you as a contractor, but they treat you as an employee, if you've signed a contract to be a contractor, that's all you can ever be. That's apparently a plan that this government's trying to put through at the moment. And so I'd say, I just wonder how the Uber donation box is going for the National Party / right-wing parties at the moment, because they would like that one. So anyway, this is a Uber story about them paying not very much tax in New Zealand. I'll show you a bit of Craig's podcast and explain what's coming up tomorrow as well.
Uber is being accused of not paying its fair share of taxes.
It's funny they say being accused, because I think they paid about 1.2 million in tax. So they're being accused paying 1.2 million tax, and they take out more than 100 million. So it's not just like they're not paying, it's they're being accused of it, even though we know what the numbers are.
Here, a new report claims the rideshare service shifted millions of dollars overseas in what it calls intercompany service fees in order to lower its New Zealand tax bill. But as Katie Stevenson reports, the company says it's paid the right amount.
Many Kiwis use Uber to get around. The popular rideshare app launched here in 2014. Now there are claims the multinational company isn't paying its fair share of tax.
The New Zealand government ends up missing out on tens of millions of dollars worth of tax revenue, corporate tax revenue that we should be getting from them.
According to Uber's most recently available annual report, in 2023 the company made $365 million in revenue here, but reported a profit of $4.5 million.
The vast majority of revenue that they...
Did you get that? What did they say? 350 million, 4.5 million in profit in New Zealand, paid 1.2 million in tax. I mean, it's good finances if you can make it work.
Book on their financial reporting here in New Zealand is sent offshore as what they call intercompany service fees. But that money should be being booked here as corporate profits before being sent offshore as dividends to the parent company.
As a result, Uber paid $1.2 million in corporate tax. In a statement, Uber says it is a significant tax contributor.
Just think about that. They took in over 350 million in New Zealand, and they paid 1.2 million. So that's like 1/3 of 1%. Remember how we have these conversations around a fair amount of tax to pay, and now those at the top don't pay their fair share? I would suggest, and remember, when they write off losses, their losses will not be New Zealand based, because the losses are all the stuff to build the thing in America, right? So the money they take in New Zealand is basically all profit. But there's ways they can do it to ship it offshore and put it through that, that company, that shell company, and then they say, well, but only 4.5 million was profit of that 350 million. Just remember again how we constantly say, all we want is a fair tax system. Fair. So they have taken $350 million out of our economy, and they've paid $1.2 million on tax on that. Sorry, Chew, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, obviously, razor thin margins. Razor thin.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when their overheads are so massive. Oh, hang on, no, the drivers own their own cars and the drivers pay their fees. And
the infrastructure that they have to...
the taxpayers pay for that. Yeah. Right. Yeah, interesting. All right, we'll keep going.
Significant tax contributor in New Zealand and complies with its tax obligations.
If the $200 million in intercompany service fees, which we believe are profits that have been shifted to a different jurisdiction, had been booked here in New Zealand, then that would have netted, at a base assumption, around about $50 to $60 million in corporate tax.
Calling for greater transparency.
We need to see greater disclosure requirements on multinational digital companies to ensure that more of the benefit is able to be booked here to fund decent public services and public investment in infrastructure.
We're losing. They are exploiting the system that is built on.
And these are the drivers who won that case to be employees. So there's two stories here. There's how much tax they're paying, and it's how Uber is, I want to say treating, but probably more accurate is classifying their drivers.
Exploiting the system that is built on, and the government's responsibility to step up and saying, no, we stand for our country, we stand for our people, you cannot do this.
It comes as the case of 4 Uber drivers who were deemed employees rather than contractors by the Employment Court heads to the Supreme Court next week after Uber appealed the ruling.
The process was painful to see them arguing that we deserve less, and Uber telling us they are not a transport company.
Gearing up for a bumpy road ahead. Katie Stevenson, One News.
So there you go, Chewy. So that's the general story. The New Zealand version of it is how much tax are you paying in New Zealand? And next week, next Tuesday, we find out. I believe to get to the Supreme Court, they've already gone through one layer of courts where they lost again. I think, I can be correct, but I think that means Uber's lost twice in the courts, and this is their last shot. Something I'll tell you, which I'm not going to, you won't see in the little snippet I'm about to play you, or maybe you do. Uber doesn't consider the person sitting in the cab to be their customer. No. They consider the driver to be their customer. And this is part of the problem. So the person sitting in the car, the customer to the driver sitting in the car, that person pays Uber, books their ride through Uber. Uber then pays the driver. But the way Uber get around this is they say they have no relationship to the person sitting in the back seat. They say their customer is the driver who pays a fee to use their platform. So again, when we say we want a fair tax system and those with money have the lawyers and the accountants to find holes in the tax system, this is the example. $350 million, more than $200 million being shipped offshore with no tax. New Zealand's missing out on about $50 to $60 million in tax from Uber. This is the example of what we're talking about, Joey.
This is the system working as intended.
Yes,
this
true.
Is Uber's complete business model and has been everywhere it operates.
Yeah. Which is why they can say we're paying everything we need to. They are playing within the rules. That's why the rules need to change. Thank you, Chloe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And for what we were talking about before of like their absolutely fudged numbers of what their profits were and how much tax they were paid. It's those figures that governments will turn around and go, well, we can't possibly tax them more because they've got such razor thin margins because of their creative accounting, which they won't show us, and that we won't compel them to show us. But we don't want to lose them. They're a massive employer. According to Uber, they're not a massive employer. So
they don't employ anyone.
Which one is it? They don't. They want the drivers to be contractors because then they don't have to pay them holidays. Then they don't have to pay them penalty rates. Then they don't
100%.
have to pay ACC or any of that sort of thing. They're on the hook for fucking nothing.
Yeah.
And look, as we went to there was a little discussion in the chat there. That Uber wouldn't be as successful as it was if the taxi companies weren't so shit. And I agree with that too. It is a classic example. This is why Uber exploded, is because of general dissatisfaction with traditional taxi operators. Yeah. And they came in with a hiss and a roar, and a lot of people went, well, hang on. This is a classic thing, right? They come in with the big discounts. They come in with a product that is cheaper, easier to use. It's on an app where you don't have to fucking call a taxi company and all of this bullshit. And people gravitated to it because it was great. And it put so much pressure on the taxi companies that then the taxi companies started to fold. Mm-hmm. And then the only other option that you have is Uber. Or other versions of Uber, but the same sort of thing. Here in Dunedin, we've got some taxi companies still hanging on. And then this, because the initial people that came in to drive for Uber doing pretty good. Payout rates were really good. They were popular, and so more and more drivers come on board, more and more drivers to dilute the pool. Suddenly the payouts aren't so good. In comes Uber Eats. Here's another way for you to make money as an Uber contractor, but now you're a food delivery driver, and we pay you even less. Talk to an Uber driver. See how much power they have in that relationship as a customer of Uber.
Yeah, I'll show you something. I'll give you a tiny
yanked from the platform at the drop of a hat with no recourse. And for a lot of people, this is their job. This is their employment. There is nothing else. They're full-time Uber drivers.
I'll give you a tiny tease. This is not what I'm going to show you now. This is coming up in Craig's podcast tomorrow morning. You were just talking about Uber Eats. This is the breakdown of our Uber Eats at the moment, their quarterly gross bookings. And you can see that delivery is half of what the Uber Eats, what the Uber thing does. Up the top there is freight, so couriers basically, and down the bottom there is mobility, so people. So you can see Uber Eats is actually now pretty much, it's not quite half, is it? But it's 45% of their business. So that's what they're doing. So Uber Eats is still making it, and I tell you what, I've pretty much stopped doing that, and I stopped doing Uber Eats when I saw that. Not that we really do McDonald's anymore, but back in the day, all of a sudden I realized, there's all these different prices for these burgers. Why aren't these burgers the same price on Uber Eats as they are going into McDonald's? And it's because Uber Eats is actually shafting the restaurants as well. And they're taking such a scraping out of it that for a restaurant to actually make their product still as profitable online on Uber Eats, they have to up the prices. So it's actually Uber Eats is making off you and the businesses and still getting what they want. And everyone else, the business is getting less and we're paying more. It's bad for all of us. So I very rarely do it anymore. Actually, the only time I do Uber Eats now is when I'm in Auckland. And my kids go, Dad, can you Uber Eats us some food? I'm like, yeah, I guess that's okay because you're pathetic and I'm still your father looking after you. But that's sort of the only time. I've stopped doing it. I've stopped doing it because of that. And then you got the delivery fee as well. So you're paying more for your food, you're paying a delivery fee, and ultimately when it turns up, it's not as good because it's been sitting in someone's car for 10 to 20 minutes. Sorry, and look, little sideways rant there at the end, but
if you want to grab a different app because you don't want to use Uber, well, guess what? It'll just be another Uber driver who's double apping.
Or triple apping.
It's triple apping, that sort of thing. Like a lot of these Silicon Valley disruption companies, right? There might be a kernel of a good idea there. a kernel of like, what is something that people don't like about taxis, right? Let's see if we can solve that problem. But then as soon as you scratch the surface, it's a tax scam. It's always a fucking tax scam. How can we rip off the operators? How can we rip off the customers? And how can we rip off the government all at the same time is going to make us enormously wealthy. Think of a popular service like Spotify is in the news at the moment because their CEO likes to funnel his personal fortune that he gets from ripping off artists into military AI. All of this is bad, and it's just all of these. Here in New Zealand, we're so prone to profit extraction by foreign companies. Our banks are mostly foreign. Our supermarkets are mostly foreign. Uber, Spotify, Netflix, all of these companies are just extracting money from us, and the government is letting them do it. They need to get mean, and they need to go, New Zealanders want nice stuff. They want their ferry terminal to look like it's not a sharing shed in the off season. They want some hospitals, and we need to be mean to these operators because they will still make money from this country, even if we close some tax loopholes for them and stop listening to them cry about it.
I spoke with Craig in just an off-the-cuff moment about that idea that I think somebody in the chat came up with, or maybe you came up with, Joey, about every dollar that gets taken offshore should be taxed at 90%. And Craig said we have it probably you're not able to do it because of our free trade agreements, that would be in conflict with them. But I'm getting to a point where I'm like, and something has to change. I actually don't hate that idea. If Uber wants to come here and make Uber amounts of cash, stacks of cash, cool, but it goes back into New Zealand or it gets taxed significantly to leave our shores. I mean, and I do think, and I was thinking about this just yesterday, actually. I don't know why, because we had that conversation around Fonterra. I think there could be legislation that says something like, maybe once you do 50% or more than 50% of your trade is international, and I'm pretty sure Fonterra would be that. Most of their trade is international. Then actually there's some restrictions on what you can charge someone in New Zealand. Because it's the public health system that looks after your workers when they go down. It's the public provided roads that your trucks drive down to pick up the milk. It's all these things. It's the public schools that trained your people who are now. So actually, you didn't do this on your own, farmers or Fonterra. The public sector added to the skills and the amount that you've been able to make off those. I think a bit of payback would be good. And I actually do think there's an argument to be had for limiting what a local company who has a huge international presence can charge local people. I don't agree, and was it Luxon who said this? Isn't it great that they get their export prices here? No, it's not. A Fonterra product landing in Perth in Australia have added nothing to that product through their existence. They haven't supported the farmers. They haven't supported Fonterra. Their local tax system hasn't covered all the years that Fonterra ran at a loss. All you do is drop the product at the port in Perth and get your money. Whereas this country has given you things to get to where you are. It's time to pay it back. And you pay it back by having some kind of freeze on how much you can charge local sales. I don't think that's obnoxiously difficult, Joey.
No, none of it is. And it's always funny when okay, so we've got a business-focused government in power and that sort of
well,
thing.
so called.
Yes, so called. And it always seems when it comes to these big international companies that they're just like, oh no, we can't scare them away. We've got to give them these tax breaks that they get overseas. No, we don't. No, we don't. And maybe if you just squeeze them a little bit, then we get more out of it. Like I don't see why a company like Uber that operates like Uber gets to pay less tax than a person does. Like this is the whole thing, right? Of like they're squealing about rivers gaining personhood, or they want corporations to have the benefits of an individual, but with none of the downsides. And it's like, cool, you want to operate Uber, pay fucking 33% tax.
Yeah.
You don't. I fucking do. What makes you different, Uber?
It's that theory of privatizing profits and socializing losses. That's what companies.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's have a look at this. I'm just going to give you the first 60 seconds. This is tomorrow's podcast with Craig. And as you can see, he has Ed for 25 minutes. As you saw the graph I've just shown you, they go much more into the bigger picture around Uber. Really good podcast, really worth checking out. This is the tease at the start of the podcast.
So when you take an Uber, you pull up the app on your phone. Yeah. You get Uber, the company, to provide you with a ride, a driver. You pay Uber. You hop in the car. It's an Uber driver that picks you up. At the end of it, that's Uber that pays the driver. Uber controls the whole transaction. And therefore, they should be considered the driver should be considered at least some kind of worker. But if you look at the filings for Uber, they don't think that drivers are their workers, whether it's employees or contractors, at all. The base assumption that runs through all of the filings in all of those jurisdictions that I mentioned is that drivers are actually the consumers of the product. The product is the platform. Drivers pay a service fee to the company, to Uber, to be able to use that and get connected with the driver, with the end user. And the end user and the driver, in Uber's mind, contract directly with one another. In Uber's mind, there is no relationship between them and the end user.
So that's the person who's sitting in the back seat. So that's the start of tomorrow's podcast with Craig Rennie, Locked Out. And it's a good one. I was fascinated listening to it today. Check it out.
You know what's just popped into my tiny little shriveled pea brain now?
Sure, tell us.
That's almost like, I wonder if there would be an argument there that the Uber drivers are franchise holders.
Yeah.
Because that's the traditional thing, right? You want to start up a business and you want to have the brand recognition of a much bigger company, like like a McDonald's, right? You didn't come up with McDonald's; it's not your recipe; it's someone else's recipe. But you want to buy in, so you're the customer in that case, right? You want to be a franchise holder to get the recognition, to get the customers. It's almost like that sort of arrangement.
Yeah, interesting. We'll be interested to see what happens from here. Let's jump into some of the chats.
Yes,
it's in the ballots.
Paul's got it. It's exactly the same as courier drivers because they're franchise holders. Yeah,
true. Instant Ballot says you're welcome to rebroadcast our content pack for 2025 local bodies and 26 general election. And the best part, Restream does the hard stuff. Oh, thank you for the offer. Peter King, oops, late fee. Jeremy Cook, late fee. Casey, just love what you do. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. The big hairy cinematic Tuniverse presents the Foo-Fooin. The Foo-Fooinin.
The Foo-Fooin. Sounds like a pudding.
Foo-Fooining. I think I got there. Jeremy says Uber isn't the only one. Transfer pricing is a legal, international, accepted scam. Yeah, and I think what it shows us as well, not necessarily on the scam, because like I said, this is the problem. They're playing within the rules. It's the rules that need to change. You know, if you were playing a sports ball game and the rule said if you were under 6 foot, you can punch anyone over 6 foot in the dick when you're running past. It's like it's the rule that's the problem. We need to change the rule, you know, although that does sound like quite an interesting sport. I wouldn't mind watching that. Ryjan says, remember, only 1 day left to submit on the bill to stop banks divesting from coal mining. Links in submission chat in the Discord server. Feel free to put the Discord server, obviously, in the chat as we're going through there, peoples. We want and deserve that fairy Ferrari. Yeah, I think it is. Kaimatara says it makes more sense to give a river personhood than treating a company like a person. You can have a river in your veins, water, but not an Uber. Although that polyunsaturated fat you'd get from like an Uber Eats, you could have that in your blood as well. There's one more there, Chewy, that you starred. Do you want me to put it up? Do you want to speak to it? The growth one? Put it up.
Oh yeah, I think that's a very worthy comment.
If IRD was granted greater enforcement powers, better data sharing, and more forensic accounting capacity, it's reasonable to recover an estimated $300 to $500 million. Reasonable to estimate 300 to 500 million could be recovered. Yeah, imagine where that could go. Imagine how many hips that would build. Build? Replace. Build? Anyway. Yeah, there you go, Chewy. So that's the podcast tomorrow morning. I should also say that Friday morning we have programmed the next podcast from Dr. Gary Payinda, and he's talking about the census, and it's a really interesting conversation with Dr. Paul Spoonley, and talking about how important the census is. Because when they said that they were going to cancel the census, like the census is what you need to project into the future. For example, what you're going to do with health funding. And they're talking about going to like a digital, almost like it sounds like they're going to do like a stuffed poll. I know I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek, but the way they're going to go to it sounds very easy to not put your information in. The thing about the census is you should have people knocking on every door. They're expensive. But the reason you have people knocking on every door is because you want really good data to plan the next 20 years of where your country's going. Yeah, well, that's a cute comment. I like that one. Obviously, I just said something. It's so fun when Pat's dyslexia matches mine. Yeah, so that's on Friday morning, by the way, Gary's podcast.
I'm quite looking forward to that. I honestly, I don't think I've formed an opinion on the whole census changes yet. I don't know enough.
Well, there you go.
And I know that goes against what I do here. That I should just shoot from the hip whether I know something or not. But yeah, I'm not opposed to changes in the census if it works. But again, we come back to what we always come back to. Do I trust this government to do a good job? No, I don't. Yeah. No, yeah. They have a clear habit of not liking inconvenient truths or facts. Or data. So why trust them? Yeah.
And so look, it's probably a good time to mention as well, Gary's podcast on I nearly said on Spottle. It's on Spotify and Apple, Spapple. It's on both of them. Obviously on Spotify you get the video as well. On Apple it's just the audio. And if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, it's on here as well. So that'll be up on Friday morning. And there's another episode already ready to go for the following Monday as well. So as we said the other day, Gary's, it's not going to be sporadic, like you're going to be like, oh, we're waiting so long. It might not just be like Craig's tries to be every Thursday morning. Gary's will be minimum once a week. I'd like to do them on Mondays as well, but we'll just see. They'll come out when they come out, basically. So notification bell.
So hit the subscribe button.
Yeah. All right, let's get to this pile of festering pus swarm. Not the man, the opinion is what I was saying. It's the opinion that's a festering pile of dog shit. I'm intrigued as to I'm intrigued as to why this opinion comes out. Like, what is it? And so much of this is bullshit. We'll probably pause a couple of times on the way through. Let's have a listen to, and like we will say it here. I don't know why they don't. This is only on Stuff, the fucking news. The fucking ridiculous news is tonight's opinion piece. Let's have a listen.
How good are billionaires? So
okay, we can stop there. Actually, first sentence. Should we just stop?
Right,
there?
Shut it down.
I'll keep
how
opinion,
good
New Zealand
are
just
billionaires
needs
as
more
fuel?
of it. Hear me out here. I want more mega rich Kiwis. I know that will infuriate a lot of people, but honestly, we need them. I reckon we have a problem with the wealthy, something called the Great Kiwi Knocking Machine. We like to knock things.
So what he's saying is we're just all a bit jealous. Not, the example we just gave of the story before about those companies that make people mega wealthy and then they don't pay their fair share in tax. That's why I'm knocking them. Not because, you've got a BMW and a flash house. I don't. That's not fair. What's not fair is how much tax you pay proportionally to the rest of the country and perhaps the rest of the world. That's what's not fair.
This tendency that we have to knock people down, particularly wealthy people. Our mindset is to think of billionaires as rich rather than...
You know, this is interesting, because we've spoken to several very wealthy people on this show who are a part of the Sharing Wealth group. Do you feel like they're the kind of wealthy people that people are going to knock down? We tend to knock them down, Chewy? No. I don't feel like it is. So therefore, there's something different about those people than the people we're talking about here. There might be a reason that some wealthy people get knocked down. Maybe it's not the money side of things. Maybe it's some other thing. It's just a few thoughts there, though, Chewy.
Down, particularly wealthy people. Our mindset is to think of billionaires as rich rather than as wealth creators. I was just reading the annual NBR rich list. That it was...
What, wealth creators for themselves. He left out the for
Fucking
themselves. Wealth creators for themselves. He's literally talking about trickle-down economics. He's literally trying to sell these rich people. You know, I found this book, slid down the back of the couch. I opened it up and it had this name written in it. It was R. Muldoon. I don't know who that was, but I read everything in it and it's fantastic. And then there was another book and it had his name, R. Richardson. And I was like, I don't know where these books have come from, but these people speak a lot of truth. This trickle-down economics, these people with all the money, they just make more money for themselves. And not other people necessarily.
It was page after page of Amazing New Zealander, actually. Personally, I had never heard of many of them. And it led me to this question. Why aren't our top 10 billionaires as well known as something like our top 10 All Blacks? For some reason, we don't put wealth creators on the same pedestal as athletes.
Yeah.
Now, I think the word billionaire is part of the problem. We attach the word billionaire to a Kiwi, and suddenly they are in the same class as those billionaires Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg.
Yep.
Because they have billions of dollars.
They have billions of dollars.
The
Mowbrays are worth...
in the name, Patrick.
Mowbrays are worth
It's in
20
the
billion.
name.
We think about billionaires like Mark Cuban. Mowbrays are worth more than Mark Cuban. You know, so that's why we associate them. We associate them because they're billionaires, as are the other ones.
But the reality is that our Kiwi billionaires are nowhere near as wealthy as these tech bros. And
as some. Nowhere near as wealthy as some. And exponentially wealthier than 99.99% of the world.
Another truth bomb is that our billionaires...
No. Truth bum. You actually finally hit something proper. You are about to spit a truth bum, not a truth bomb. So well done on being honest.
They're as wealthy as these tech bros. And another truth bomb is that our billionaires do not try and meddle with our society like Musk, Bezos, and Zuckerberg.
Okay. There's the first
Really?
time for food. Yeah,
Really?
Yes.
What?
So what do you think a political donation is for? And who do you think gives them, Paddy? Why do you think ACT and National have a war chest exponentially larger than those ones on the left that want to do things to regulate and tax billionaires? You're honestly saying that these billionaires don't do anything to meddle? What the fuck do you think a donation is to a political party to help them put out their messaging? I mean, honestly, are you that stupid? Are you that stupid?
Who is Graham Hart donating to?
Yeah.
Just out of the goodness of his pure lily white soul, he's shoveling over hundreds of millions of dollars into political donations over the years. Who are the Mowbrays donating to? Who's the Business Roundtable membership donating to?
The Right Family Foundation.
How much damage has someone like the Right Family Foundation, or who are those cretinous fucks in the New Zealand Initiative, the people that New Zealand's own pillar of Atlas?
Yeah.
How much damage have they done to our democracy over the decades? Our billionaires are just salt of the earth, artisanal, wealthy people that just want to... They're good old Kiwi battlers, are they, Paddy? This is the opinion piece version of an over-enthusiastic hand job. He is giving these people a tongue bath from toe to ear tip.
Oh, gosh.
And it's just nonsense.
Yeah. Honestly.
Why don't we value these people like we do the All Blacks? I don't know. Maybe because All Blacks are team players. Maybe they're on an even playing field. Maybe because they're not bribing the judges. Like, this is just a piece of idiot foolishness.
Yeah.
This guy couldn't be more of a fucking sycophant if he tried. This is gold medal shit.
But listen,
What a
that's why
bunch of-
that's why I'd like to on a professional level, I'd like to understand where this come from, because it makes no logical. I mean, that's one of the stupidest things any human being has ever said about billionaires in politics, that they don't
It's
meddle in
insane.
politics. Like, honestly, it borders on the euthanized, that opinion. It's just that bad. So why? Because I don't believe he's dumb. So why is he choosing this opinion? Is he really just missed the mark that much, or is someone angling for a little something from some people? You know,
we can't see what's underneath the shot here. So I don't know if someone's got their fucking arm right up his ass and they're just working him like a muppet.
like that, yeah.
But to just refer to billionaires as wealthy, that in itself is just fundamentally wrong. A millionaire is wealthy.
See, gaslighting, 100%.
Yeah,
Makes no sense.
Well, this whole thing of like the New Zealand tall poppy syndrome, like, we value fairness. We always have. We love an underdog story. We love someone triumphing over adversity. But there's a point where you're not triumphing over adversity. You've kicked adversity's ass years ago, and you're still stacking triumph. It's not as good of a story anymore. But billionaires shouldn't exist. They should not exist. This is something that is being said overseas. It is something that should 100% true. I tell you what, when we don't have hungry kids, when we don't have any kids that are missing out on schools or are getting commonly, like, easily fixable respiratory illnesses because their housing is shit, or they're sleeping in their fucking cars, or they're going to school hungry, I tell you what, that's when you can start stacking up excess profits. But if you're a billionaire, there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire. You are just stealing. You are extracting excess value from your workers, from the government, from your consumers, and you're just not stopping. How much is too much? How much can you exist in society and look around and go, yep, all of this is good. There's nothing I can do to make this better. Show me my bank account, please. Paddy, that was an excellent hand job.
And,
I commend you. Ruffle his hair.
We've said this before, and I'll say it again. The Mowbray's wealth, 20 bill. That means the Mowbrays could not earn another cent, right? Like, so there was no more money coming in. They could spend $1 million a day, $1 million a day, every day for the next 54 years, and they would still have money left over. It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary.
An inconceivably obscene amount of money.
So the Mowbrays right now could give to charity, give to schools, give to hospitals $100,000 a day, and it would do. Probably at the end of the year, they would have the same, if not more money, just from interest on it and interest on their investments. Now, there are people in the world like that. You know, the Warren Buffetts of the world, and I guess the Microsoft man. What's his name? Bill. I keep wanting to say Bill
Gates.
Bill Gates.
They
get to the end and they start flicking it backwards. But you know,
I'm going to put Bezos's ex in there.
Yeah,
took
she's trying to get rid of all his money, eh?
Broke world records to rid herself of that money. Meanwhile, he's gone on and married another mannequin. It spent $47 million on his wedding.
Yeah. Hey, look,
How many hospitals can you build for that?
Well, yeah, good question. Let's keep going.
Another truth bomb is that our billionaires do not try and meddle with our society like
Been
Musk,
there.
Bezos,
What?
and
Excuse me.
Zuckerberg.
Bullshit.
For the record, I've got no problem with Jeff Bezos' wedding. It is easy to criticise something so over the top, but honestly, I don't care about how he spends his money. It makes no difference to me. Apparently, he ended it with a pajama party. I just wish I had enough money for a pajama party. It sounds like fun.
So it's funny because what's happening is this is projection, because he's saying the tall poppy syndrome, everyone's so jealous of their money. But what he literally just said there is, I'm jealous of his money. I wish I had that kind of money to have a party like that. None of us are saying that. So who's the one that's actually got the green-eyed monster here? Who's the envious one? It's not the people that you're all saying are the envious ones, Paddy. It's projection. You're the one that's saying you want that, not us.
Now, my point here is I don't care how people spend their money as long as it's not hurting society.
Well,
And explode.
well, I don't know what to say, Patrick. Society is worse. And it is worse for these guys stacking the deck in their favour endlessly to avoid making society better. These guys will spend an epic amount of money to make sure that they don't have to pay any more money that other people would benefit from.
Yep.
It's fucking weird.
Yep, and listen, we
Like,
just said it.
the-
Every donation they give to a political party or a lobby group or whatever can and does often, not always, because they might go to a good cause, but often they don't. They go to the other side and do make society better. Many of these very ultra uber wealthy people, they get their money and then they make society worse for it. And by make worse, I mean make better for them and their top 10% and worse for everybody else. So this is just nonsense. This is just
There's
nonsense.
so many dumb statements in this, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
He's talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
this pajama party, and he goes, "I wish I had enough money to have a pajama party." What? You don't need a lot of money to have a pajama party, Pat. You could
pajamas.
just go and have one.
Maybe
You
there's
could
friends.
just go
Maybe,
and have one, man.
maybe he needs to buy some friends. Maybe it's not the pajamas that he's missing, it's the friends. Maybe that's what it is.
Where the anger comes from, Pat, it's not from jealousy. It's not from the green-eyed monster. It's not from the, as he says, a phrase that's never been uttered before, the great New Zealand knocking machine. It is from a sense of just injustice. Like, I cannot fathom spending $46 million on a self-indulgent party while people in the world are hungry.
Yep. We're going to keep going because we've still got the Channel 4 thing to get through as well. So let's get to the end of this.
So while I care about what Bezos may be doing to media independence, I don't care about his pajama party. If they created the wealth, they can splash it around. Now, a good New Zealand
How
example.
do they create their wealth? They didn't do it on their own. Fonterra, we've talked about the Fonterra roads that we've paid for, the health system that we've supported, the education system that they don't. No one creates this on their own. There is no such thing as a self-made man. That is a fallacy that people who want to be selfish with their money and not share create around themselves. No one is an island unto themselves. Everyone benefits from a public system, even a terrible public system like in America. Everyone benefits from it. All we're saying is it's time for you to help pay back some of the benefits you got from the public system when you were coming up. The stuff you could write off to the IRD when you were running at losses. All of those things. Now just pay your fair share. That's it. Pay your fair share. Nothing more. That's all.
Bezos' workforce is sleeping in cars outside the distribution centre. They're pissing in bottles. They're dying in those distribution centres from tornadoes, heat stroke, poisonings, heart attacks. Like, Bezos' wealth extraction machine is one of the worst parts of the American working culture. And I love when he's tried to use the same pattern overseas in Europe and he's just got curb stomped by all the labour laws that they have there.
Of course.
You can't make it work because it's built on slavery.
Yeah.
If he could get it to be done by robots, he wouldn't have a workforce.
Well,
He'd get
that's
rid
on
of them the next day.
But that's on the way, isn't it? The same
Yeah,
question can
absolutely.
be the same question will be said for Uber. Is that once the all the cars are automated, all those drivers are going to lose their jobs overnight. We'll keep going with Paddy here.
Example is the helipad that has been approved for Anna Mowbray and Williams. This has been one of those obsessive news stories, but honestly, who cares?
I do.
Of course, there is some valid criticism, but
Their
How is it
neighbours.
impacting the environment? How is it impacting the neighbours? I care. You don't care because you're not the person being impacted by it. What is it doing? What is it doing to the environment around it? How's it going to handle the birds in the area? I care. I care about that stuff.
is going to be in a neighbourhood that most ordinary New Zealanders will never ever visit.
Ordinary.
But for some reason, we talk about the helipad more than we talk about how Anna Mowbray has created her wealth.
His
How her
neighbours
family took
hate
their
it.
toy empire to the world, or her new venture with job marketplace Zeal, or her role in bringing Auckland FC to New Zealand. Honestly, New Zealand needs our billionaires. We need the businesses and the jobs they create. We need their drive and we need their innovation. A lot of them give
many
their money
New
away.
Zealand
We need
jobs
their
from the
philanthropy.
Mowbrays?
More of that, please. Of course, we want them to play nice with the rest of us. And in New Zealand, the reality is they largely do. We need Peter Jackson, Rod Drury and Graham Hart. And we need more like this to come along. If that means a few more helipads, so be it.
The one in there that I will actually go fine is Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson is responsible for a filming. I know that there's not all good, but for a filming amount of money spent in this country based on filming coming here, like the income he has generated for New Zealand is beyond plastic toys out of a North Shore address in Auckland.
But billionaires don't change society, right? They don't lobby for film tax credits or anti-worker labour law changes, so he could get away with some of the stuff that he wanted to do around the films. This is the thing. I like Peter Jackson. I like his films. I think he's a crazy, wealthy nutbar that likes to spend his money on model trains and World War I aircraft, and that's fucking rad if you've made a bunch of money. Like, I'm not jealous of Peter Jackson, right? I love that he's kooky. You know, money comes out of those movies. That's fine. But he is not a good guy 100% of the time. He anti-worker law changes came out of the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah.
So you can't say, oh, you know, they're not making, you know, society worse. It's always better. It's not. Like I said, the Mowbrays. How many New Zealand jobs have they created? Are they creating more jobs? No, because it's plastic shit out of Chinese factories.
But they're not. But according to Paddy, they're not harming society. Like all those plastic things that end up in landfills, they'll be fine. They'll break down in about 5 minutes.
Toys.
Yeah.
Like,
look, I also hear you about Peter Jackson. I'm not saying everything's perfect. He just feels a bit different. Actually having come up through that ranks. No one's perfect. I mean, I know the situation around, like I had an agent at the time some of those movies were happening, and some of my fellow actors in that agency refused to work because of the law that came in that allowed internationals to leapfrog local actors. I can't remember the exact details. So I'm with you. There's no perfect anywhere. I just feel that in the general scale of billionaires, he is, can I just say this, he's 5%, he feels 5% different. Because he has brought a lot of income into the country as well.
Yep.
That's all.
And I like World War I aircraft, and he's got a whole bunch. Look, here's the thing. This is a message just for the patrons. If you could donate harder, I want to buy a property next to where the Mowbrays have their helipad. And I want to apply for retrospective resource consent for a fixed anti-aircraft gun.
Okay, let me work it out. So there's going to be
maybe I won't. Maybe I won't
20
use
million?
it. Maybe 20, I will. But
20 million be enough? 20 million? 20 million.
Yeah.
So that's we need about 44,444 from each patron. By tonight, by end of the show?
Yeah.
We can do that, eh?
And
Easy.
look, if I'm not selling you on it, here's the thing. It'll be funny. Like, imagine you've just built your helipad against all objections. Like, I think it's 93% of people that submitted against it were against it. Hilariously, 12 people that submitted had no strong opinions either way. They just wanted to be included. But imagine that. You've just got your helipad, and then your neighbour starts erecting like a World War II flak gun for no reason.
But I can actually probably do you one better and slightly cheaper. Why don't we just get the property next door and start like a homing pigeon group? And that every time the helicopter is about to leave or arrive, we let our homing pigeons out and send them off to their places on the other side of the harbour and back again. You know, I know. Now, look, to being serious, a few birds might be harmed in the actions I'm going to take, but it might be a bit cheaper. Just saying.
Yeah, we can't harm wildlife, Pat.
Okay, I'm out.
We're woke lefty losers. What we can do,
but we can shoot down human beings in a helicopter as they fly in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
because
just a second.
We've
finding the
started a new tech business on the island.
Okay.
Of drone swarms.
Pet drones.
So we get to pet drones. There we go.
Pet drones.
Cool. So
Done.
we're all on board. We're pulling in the same direction.
We've come together. Ooh.
Billionaires shouldn't exist, and we'll start with them.
Chewie didn't hear that, team. Don't bring it up again. Okay. Let's have a.
Sorry. 1 second. We can't pivot outside of this section without me putting this up.
That poor little boy. He's terrified of the little taxes.
Maybe you should start throwing bundles of money at that bucket. But yes, if they don't stoppy, then we have to choppy. That's the rules.
Samuel Hudson says, "Kia ora, Pat. Great show. Ngā mihi." Oh, thanks.
Hey.
Kiwi Bird says, "We ain't jealous, Paddy. We angry." Jeremy says, "Thanks for those images, Chewy. No sleeping tonight." That came in. I don't know what exactly the images were.
I assume I'm going to take a guess here of Patrick Gower's enthusiastic hand job for the ultra wealthy.
Paddy Gower on Truth Bum. Yeah, that should be his new show. Get rid of the fucking news and just call it Truth Bum with Paddy Gower. The nonsense from Paddy is so out of the gate and bizarre. He must be under the thumb of someone. Someone from Atlas must have reached out and found his price, or he's trying to get a job at the Herald. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, like we saw this with Duncan Garner. Last year, he was just really doing the big news stories of the day and he wasn't getting much traction. And this year, he has taken a hard turn to the right. And, you know, he's getting views. He's getting lots of them. But
God, we keep seeing this, isn't it?
It feels like it says two things. One is that the algorithm on YouTube and stuff is right wing, like without question. Because when you put up the clip that's, you know, the bad about Te Pāti Māori or whatever, or you put a racial slur in, it gets heaps of views. It does. It just does. And so when someone says there, maybe, you know, he's swinging for a job elsewhere, you got to ask the question. I think it's a fair question to ask, that he's trying to impress someone to show his bona fides about being able to sort of, you know, big up the rights, big up the wealthy. Kaimā Tara says tall poppy syndrome was warped by neoliberal propaganda in the 80s. Its origin was actually about counter-revolutionaries, Tarquin the Proud. Another one here. Chopping the poppies like Brutus resisting him, socialists are the tall poppies, and the rich are the ones with tall poppy syndrome. Yeah, that's interesting because the rich, it's often the rich who want to be richer. You know, like there's that, like, was it Malcolm Rand who told us last week about the addiction that the rich have to money? And so it's I wonder if the people who are actually the most tall poppy are the people who are one below the person who's one richer than them.
Well, that imagery as well, if I could get a little poetic on you, right, is you've got someone looking at a field of poppies. We are all the poppies, my children. And if we're all just sitting there accepting the way things are, we're a nice, even field of poppies. But then there's a couple of people that stick their heads up and go, this world could be better. Maybe we shouldn't be doing things this way. Maybe we should be feeding billionaires into some sort of industrial thresher as a lesson to the rest. Well, then you're the tall poppy. You get... So, choppy. You know, that analogy works every way. So if Paddy Gower wants to talk about tall poppy syndrome, how about he take a fucking look at that one?
Citizen Gold says for the AA, and the Southern Moonlight says for the Chewies ACK Gun Fund. There you go, there's a couple. And then there's another one, Arvid's Anti-Aircraft Pew Pew Fund.
I'm telling you, I'm on to a winner.
Kaimā Tara, if they don't pay taxes, they get axes. Chop, chop. And Daniel Maguire says, Chewy Zeus 23 Fund. You can drive over Luxon's car. Is that a tank? Is that a Zeus 23 a tank or something? Something, a big armoured vehicle?
It is a Russian anti-aircraft tank.
Oh, there you go. Very good. All right, team, we're going to keep trucking because this is remember we're scaling up to Chewy's explosion. This is actually
have I still got a mountain to climb?
You are in pre-orbit. You're about to drop your boosters, my friend. So this is Channel 4 in the UK. This is called the Fourcast. This is where I get to tell you the fun. I'll play the first clip, then I'll tell you the fun thing. This is the host. The two guests are Lord Toby Young and Ash Sarkar. Ash Sarkar is the young black female. She is an activist. Lord Toby Young is a journalist, and there's another interesting, very good fact about him, Chewy, which I'll give you shortly. But the conversation started with the host asking Ash if it was wrong to say death to the IDF, and that's where we begin this conversation.
Well, first thing I would say is that saying death to the IDF when that army is currently committing a genocide, when there are recorded and verified instances of them firing on unarmed civilians while they're waiting for aid to be distributed, recorded instances of gang rape, children being admitted to hospital with sniper wounds to the skull, I think it is an appropriate expression of rage and disgust.
So in this particular instance, you say, because of what the IDF has done in Gaza, you would say shouting or leading a chorus, death to the IDF is legit. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. The same way it is completely legitimate to say destroy ISIS. These are organizations founded on violence, terrorizing innocent civilians, and it is always appropriate to express one's opposition to that. I don't think that it was anti-Semitic, and nor do I think it was inappropriate for a punk band, when this is a genre associated with pushing the boundaries, to lead a chant at what's effectively a concert.
Okay. Toby, what's your reaction?
Well, I think Ash and I profoundly disagree about the military operation in Gaza, which I believe is a legitimate act of self-defense on Israel's part. And I thought it was particularly insensitive to chant death to the IDF at a music festival, given that something like 350 people were killed at the Nova Music Festival on October 7th, 2 years ago.
So, okay, just wait. He actually, this is over the last 48 hours.
Wow, that's tenuous.
He evoked right to defend themselves. And did you hear how he said it? What word did he use? I don't know what he used, but he said it wasn't very polite. It wasn't very kind. Here's my little tidbit about Lord Toby Young. Do you know who this guy is, Chewy? Do you know one of the things he's famous for? It's going to blow your brain.
Oh, please tell me.
He is the founder of the Free Speech Union.
Motherfucker.
He is the founder of the Free Speech Union. He is on television right now, and recorded, talking about this group's speech and why it wasn't okay. He is the founder of a union, which is not a union, a group that goes around the world talking about free speech. And he's spending this conversation telling us why Bob Vilan should not have said what they said on stage. He is the founder. He's not a member. He's the guy who started the whole thing of the Free Speech Union. I mean, please, bitch. What do you say?
There's a point where it goes past satire into a whole nother dimension. I'm like, why doesn't this man explode from irony poisoning?
So here is the write-up and then show notes. Matt Friel is the name of the host. He is joined by journalist and founder of the Free Speech Union, Lord Toby Young. He is the founder of the Free Speech Union. I put a tweet out today before I knew I did this, and I went, isn't it interesting that there's not many people who believe in free speech at the moment going, I reject what Bob Vilan has said as inflammatory, but I reserve the right and will fight to the death for his right to say it. Haven't seen that anywhere, have we? It's really strange. And as we've been saying for months now, the one thing that shows the hypocrisy and breaks the brain of these right-wing free speech bullshitters who believe free for me, but not for thee, the one thing that shows their hypocrisy is Israel. It's the one thing. It's their tell. If you're playing poker with them, it's their tell. Israel, all of a sudden, I don't think they should be saying that on stage. The founder of the fucking Free Speech Union. More to come. More to come. Woo! Sorry, back again. Have a look at this clip. This is really good as well. This is from Ash again. And Ash serves him his lunch. She wears him as a hat, as Chewy would say. That has to be a t-shirt. We have to do he wears him as a hat t-shirt. So this is talking about, they went into a conversation about what is it chargeable? Are these things chargeable? Like because of these weird laws they've got in the UK. But the next question that came from the host was about should the BBC have even shown this? Did they fall short of what they should have done? And Ash goes into a really interesting part about the cowardice of the BBC.
I think the BBC has, on repeated instances, displayed an appalling lack of moral fortitude when it comes to freedom of expression, whether that's artistic or journalistic. There is a documentary, which I believe Channel 4 is now going to air, about the experiences of medics in Gaza who are under attack. The BBC, for some reason, decided they didn't want to show it, despite it being a factual documentary. And when you look at their coverage, there was a recent study released by the Centre for Media Monitoring, which showed that the coverage of Israeli deaths gets 33 times more attention on the BBC than coverage of Palestinian deaths, despite Palestinian deaths outnumbering Israeli deaths by about 34 times. Similarly, when...
she's good. She's good. And she's got the receipts.
In deaths outnumbering Israeli deaths by about 34 times. Similarly, when reporting on what I believe is a genocidal war in Gaza, only 0.5% of the reports mention that there was violence and occupation by the IDF, by the Israeli government before October 7th, compared to the fact that in these reports, 40% of them start by talking about October 7th. So I think that this is an extension of that cowardice and that political bias of the BBC.
I mean,
woo! She's on fire. More to come. Jump in if you want, Chewy. If you don't, I'm going to go straight to the next one. What are your thoughts?
No, roll on.
Okay,
this
is all
more, please.
That's all good.
Please.
I told you it's a serious topic, but you'll do it. So this part of the conversation, and look, the whole thing's only 23 minutes. You should go and see. You go and watch it. It's called Fourcast, Four cast. Go and look it up. Watch the whole thing. Did the band ruin their message? Did they ruin their message by the way they delivered their message? You know, it's that old adage, how are we supposed to protest? This is the response to that.
It's understandable. I think if you're looking for a substantive political engagement, don't go looking to a band called Bob Vilan or another band called Kneecap. All right. I think that this is part of this long tradition of punk bands who, like I said, are outrageous and do present their politics and their worldview in a way which is sometimes tongue-in-cheek. I mean, you can go back to the Sex Pistols for that. Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious, Rage Against the Machine, where the chorus of their most famous song is "F you, I won't do what you tell me." So I think that they can be sincere in their politics, but not necessarily sincere in the presentation of that politics, the language and the imagery that's used. And we shouldn't expect that of artists. We should expect that of politicians and journalists, but not musicians.
Very, very good. Now, the next clip, Chewy, is the one that's a bit longer. It's about 3 minutes. And they're talking about why is it different shouting death, death to the IDF? Why do we see that as different to, for example, shouting death to Hamas or death to ISIS. Or whatever. Why is it different? And the founder of the Free Speech Union, he answers the question correctly, and it gives it all away. Like, it gives it all away. This full clip's 3 minutes. I'm sure we'll come in and have a bit of a chat as we go through, but yeah, He gives the actual honest and truthful answer, and his honest and truthful answer is the problem. He can't see it's the problem, though.
Toby, I mean, obviously people are very upset. Many people are upset about death to the IDF. But had someone shouted death to Hamas or death to the Russian army, would we be having this conversation, do you think?
Well, we might not, because we are allied to the Ukraine and to Israel.
And there you go, Fano. We are aligned. We're on their team. So Israel can get away with anything they want because are we going to say the West, the white countries, the whatever, they're on our team. So we have to defend them, even when they're doing a genocide. We can't say anything against them. I agree with them. That's the right answer. I'm thinking we should fucking get off their team. We don't have to be on the opposing team. We can just be on our own team. Maybe that's the answer there. But what he's saying is the truth.
I know whose team I'm on. Team innocent civilian.
Me too.
And hungry child.
Me too.
Like Hamas can get fucked.
Yep.
But the IDF can get double fucked because they have such an overmatch in this case. Like, I can understand. Like, I was talking about this with a workmate of mine today. I understand how Israel and the IDF got to this place. I understand the concept of what did that because I've followed the history, right? I understand how the IDF got to the point where if we hit someone who hit us as hard as we fucking can, eventually they'll stop hitting us. But they have got to this point where it's like, this person didn't really hit us that hard. Like, it's not an existential threat, but we've still got this default thing of we're going to carpet bomb everyone.
Yeah.
You know, it has transitioned through this. And look, I know that there's people that are going to go, nope, IDF's always been fucked. And maybe there's some truth in that, but there's been a very clear change. I don't think Israel is going to recover its reputation from this, like globally. I have never seen cut through in support for the Palestinian movement, for the just open recognition of like, oh, the Israeli settlers are just a bunch of insane people. You know that there has been, I think it's something like 413 settler attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank in the last month. And a lot of them resulted in fatalities. I saw a video the other day of a settler's vehicle deliberately trying to block in a Red Crescent ambulance trying to respond to an attack on Palestinians in the West Bank by settlers. Like, they are despicable people.
Yeah.
Now, again, just to clarify, for the more fucking contextually challenged out there, I am not saying that all Jewish people everywhere globally are terrible people. I'm saying a subsect of ultra-radicalized, ultra-fundamentalist Zionists are insane. And they don't care. They want to push this needle as far as possible to the fullest extent. And their government supports them.
I got us 14 seconds into the longer clip, so we will keep going. And there is more in this part of the clip that you're not going to like, especially when he uses the word genocide about what's happening to Israel at the moment. You've got the right to blow about that as well. And also when he starts to talk about, it may not be this clip, might be the next one, the IDF as a racial identity. That's still to come, Fano. Let's keep going.
Because we are allied to the Ukraine and to Israel. I think that the pertinent hypothetical is, let's suppose they'd been a far-right skinhead band and started throwing around the P word and the N word.
Can I ask a really dumb question? What's the P word? Like, what's it relation to? I thought about it today. I know it might sound dumb, but what's the P word? Don't say it or whatever in the thing, but...
Well, I could probably say a shorter version of it, and it's probably because of the woman in the middle. It's
The
one
what in the
that's
middle?
the woman in the middle there. That's probably why it's on the front of his mind.
Oh, right. So in other words, what someone would use as a racial term from Pakistan, from India or Pakistan. That's okay. Gotcha. I genuinely had to think.
And I find that really interesting that that's the first thing that he offered, that a skinhead band would come up and it wasn't the N word.
PDF file? Could that be the P word? Maybe. All right. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just so naive to the world, Fano. I don't know what's going on. I needed to know.
I think the BBC in those circumstances would have pulled the plug on the broadcast pretty promptly.
Sorry, you're so right, Chewy. If that's what the P word is, when he's sitting next to someone that looks the way that Ash looks, that's interesting. That was the one that jumped into his head. Didn't jump into my head at any stage.
It still sounds to me as though what he chanted and what he said, it was borderline, if not straightforwardly, anti-Semitic. And I think it's just generally true that expressions of anti-Semitism, certainly anti-Zionism, are not considered as egregious as other forms of racism. And I do think that had he said something about another ethnic group, let's not forget, Ash, that the majority of the population of Israel are in the IDF, including teenagers.
Wait for it.
So when you're chanting death, death to the IDF, you're essentially calling for the genocide of Jews living in Israel.
Your chance to explode. Would you like to explode first?
Wow. I think we need to send out a search and rescue party to get this man back to reality. He's wandered so far off the trail, he'll never find his way back.
What I've written on my list is Loooong, Longbow.
God.
So
Like,
this is anti-Semitic.
Send in the helicopters.
It's anti-Jewish. And remember, remember, I might not have told you this, Chewy, but he's the founder of the Free Speech Union. This is the logic. This is the gymnastics that they have to do to form their free speech opinions. Maybe we should ask fucking Jonathan Ailing on, see what he thinks about Bob Vilan and what they've got to say. Maybe he should have some things. I think they're probably being strangely quiet as well. Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird?
For those of you playing at home that might be confused about this bald-headed fuck and his mystery mission to find a point to defend, the IDF is an organisation. It's a military. It's not an ethnic group. It might be comprised of Jewish people, but it's not an ethnic group.
The American army is not a Christian army. You know, the Indian army is not a Hindu army. Forgive me if I've got that wrong.
Calling for the death of an organisation is not calling for the execution of everybody in the organisation. It's just basically saying this organisation shouldn't exist. And personally, I think with the situation that we have at the moment, that the death of the IDF would significantly cool things down a bit.
All right. Hey, I'm sorry for this long clip, making it long, but we'll keep going. I'm afraid you have to look at him.
So it's quite hard to defend it, I think, on I mean, I don't think he should be prosecuted, to be clear, but nevertheless, I think it's pretty unsavoury. And had it been another ethnic group he was attacking, I think the BBC would have pulled the plug.
He said it's unsavoury, but at no point yet, or at no point in this conversation does he say those famous words, but I defend his right to say it. The founder of the Free Speech Union. At no point does he say that.
I disagree with you, Toby, which is a shame because I find you normally to be a very, very rigorous thinker. The IDF is an organisation. It is an institution. It is an army which is currently carrying out absolutely egregious war crimes and massacres. So egregious that even Wes Streeting, who is, generally very supportive of Israel, said, get your house in order. And I think it's possible to object and to find distasteful what Bob Vilan or anyone else said. That's entirely your right, without changing substantively what was said. Not talking about an ethnic group, talking about an army, a military currently engaged in an absolutely brutal war. The second thing, and this is important for coming back to the points made by Bob Vilan.
So I'm not interrupting. She's very good. She is very good.
She's amazing.
And also by Kneecap, which is part of the reason why Bob Vilan and also Kneecap feel so strongly a sense of solidarity to Palestine is that they relate it to their own experience of colonialism and racism. Obviously, Bob Vilan, this punk duo, both of them are black. Kneecap, they say we consider the north of Ireland to be an occupied territory. And they make the connections between the history of, say, the black and tans who were operating in Ireland, enacting horrific violence, and the same individuals were involved in, 1930s and 1940s, what was then the mandate of British Palestine. So all of these things, they have answers for. They have a set of politics around, and it's not about singling out Jews. They've put it in their own words about what it's about. And I think that there is something so pernicious and underhand about when someone's telling you what their politics are and saying, this is why I believe what I believe. Instead, you're saying, no, I can see into your heart, I can read your mind, and this is what I think is really going on, because it's completely unfalsifiable.
There you go. One more clip to go, Chile. And the last clip is still just as infuriating with... I haven't mentioned this maybe, but the founder of the Free Speech Union. And Ash is brilliant here once again, because the classic question comes up. Basically, is this the right way to criticize Israel? What's the correct way to do it? Is this the best way to do it? Are they hampering their message with the way they're doing this? And again, chef's kiss to Ash. It's just brilliant.
What I'd say is that there has been no form of criticism of the State of Israel that the State of Israel or its supporters have found acceptable. From the river to the sea, they don't like that. They don't like it when you call them an apartheid state, despite the fact that leading international human rights organizations like Amnesty, like Human Rights Watch, have called what they're doing apartheid. They don't like it when you call what they're doing a genocide, despite the fact that South Africa and other countries have presented a compelling case at the ICJ. They don't like it when even Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron, who are hardly punk rock radicals, say, hey, you've gone too far, you need to let in some aid. All of that is anti-Semitic. So I think that while you may once more think, ooh, this isn't helpful to the cause, and I think it's fine to have that opinion, I think that one shouldn't think there is a form of expression that wouldn't be labelled as anti-Semitic by supporters of Israel. And I, again, would like to return to this point about the difference between political art and politics itself. Political art has always been about pushing boundaries. You say things in ways which are highly emotive. And punk bands especially have always done that. I mean, you only have to go back and, listen to songs by The Clash, for instance, like Spanish Bombs. It's all about telling an emotional story. And I think that Bob Vilan they see themselves in that tradition. I mean, one of the rappers who has inspired Bob Vilan directly is Dizzy Rascal, who's not particularly political, but when he raps, all I care about is sex and violence, a heavy bass line is my kind of silence. Sure, that's going to be off-putting to some people, and some would say, oh, Mr. Rascal, you're letting yourself down, but he's a rapper, Rascal. He's a punk artist. What do you want from them?
There you go. And that's the end of it. I wonder, I didn't tee it up, because there's something that really interesting, talking about these guys getting themselves in knots. Maybe I should find it. I'd have to find it live on air, which mightn't be the best thing to do, but Mr. Plunkett shared a story yesterday about going to a re-education camp by the IDF, yet he doesn't realise he went to a re-education camp by the IDF. Maybe I'll find it. I'll have to do this in real time. Maybe Chewy, you can look after the people. Look, I'll try and find this clip and I'll show it to you.
As someone whose chosen musical genre is punk rock, I love it when people are sort of stunned at the audacity of punk musicians to turn around and say exactly what they like. And it's always pointed at power structures and entrenched lines of thinking, and that has always been what's attracted me to it. The fact that anybody thought that Bob Vilan was going to stand up there and say something non-confrontational, non-confronting, I urge people to go and listen to some of his songs, or some of their songs, because I keep on forgetting it's a duo. It's not a person. there are songs, and I've been putting them up. For those of you that aren't on our Discord, I have a little Chewy's jukebox corner where we share music. And as soon as this kicked off, I just put up a bunch of my favourite Bob Vilan tracks. The first one I ever heard was one called "We Live Here," and it is confronting, and it speaks to power and it speaks to truth. And I think, you know, it's always amazing when people criticize artists of any genre, of any flavor,
Unpack.
for not just doing art. You know, you can't do politics in the art. You're taking away from the art form. It's a story as old as time. Artists are always going to do whatever the fuck they want.
I'll play this for you, right? I haven't got the cue up quite right. I've had to go in and find it based on the words that he says. But I heard this and I went, oh my gosh, someone who used to be a journalist, you've been propagandized to and you didn't even know. You've been to a re-education camp. He talks about how young IDF soldiers took them to the place of the massacre at what Hamas did on October 7th. They got taken there by young IDF soldiers to educate them as to what happened. I'm like, dude, that's propaganda. That is a re-education camp, a literal re-education camp. And he doesn't see it. He doesn't see it. But of course, I'll just play you a bit more. You got to also know that this is, again, these people who are free speech, anti-hate speech, are now pro-hate speech when it's said at Glastonbury Festival, right?
Looking into it, presumably because it is a hate crime.
That's the police looking into it, because it's a hate crime.
It is a terrible indication of the state of the Western world that has happened. And the greatest irony, and I've been to the site of the Nova Music Festival, which I imagine was like a mini Glastonbury.
You don't know.
And it was full of, like the IDF, it was full of young people.
Lots of young people in the IDF.
Just like the IDF.
And 300 to 400 of them were brutally murdered.
Some of them by the IDF.
The people wearing the tea towels.
A little bit of racism.
By Hamas. And to think now that young Westerners are essentially cheering on that massacre. And I've been to the site. It's one of the saddest places I've ever been.
Wait for it, though.
In my life. One of the most moving and saddest places I've ever been in my life. And for those morons at Glastonbury to be whipped into a frenzy chanting death, death to the IDF at a rock concert, the world is in a very strange place. I'd also add that the young people of the IDF is raised by conscription. And when I was at Nova, I saw a group of those young people,
right,
in uniform with their weapons.
Yeah.
They were there as part of an educational program run by the IDF to take people to places like Nova and to learn about their history and learn about what...
They were taken, young IDF soldiers, as part of an educational program. They're the words he used. Take people to sites like the Nova Festival to educate them. That is a literal definition of propaganda. Soldiers in uniform with guns who were the age of the people that were terrorized, killed by terrorists, took you to a site to educate you. That is propaganda. That's an education camp. You literally went to one, but because you're no longer a journalist, you were like, well, this is normal. Excuse me? It's like, this is the equivalent, okay, ready? It's like the Americans taking you to Pearl Harbor at the start of World War II to show you everything bad that happened. Would you just happily believe that and take it on board? You have to question who's telling you the story and what they're doing it for. I couldn't fathom.
I assume for the sake of balance that he then went to Gaza and saw some of the tents or the craters where the tents used to be.
Of course not.
You know? No, of course not. I love when they bring up the music festival, this horrible thing that happened at the music festival. It is credible. There is evidence that many of those that were running from the initial attack at the music festival were gunned down by the IDF response.
Yeah.
So the IDF doesn't get to hold this up as going, well, this is why we do what we do. You gunned down people running from a music festival from helicopter gunships, because it's better to kill your citizens yourself than have them taken as hostages. That is Israeli government policy.
Wow. I was about to say to you, this doesn't really matter though to me, because that just gets into a debate about what happened on the day it's finished. But if that is what you're saying is accurate, and that was actually policy, better to have a dead Israeli than a Israeli in a hostage situation, then that's pretty horrific. Look, anyway,
it's called the Hannibal. You can look it up. It's called the Hannibal Directive.
Yeah, I have heard.
And like, if you want to talk about the IDF being the bastion of Western civilization, they must be pretty proud and confident in the position that they've taken.
Yeah.
This is how they display themselves now. This is how confident they are. These are their graduation pictures. Why are they doing that? Is it so their facial features can't be scraped for war crimes convictions?
Yeah, right.
Look at them. Scrape them halfway down the page.
Or is it more simple than that? And is it just that they're embarrassed? Like, I thought today, for the first time ever, I'd like to see some research. If there was no conscription, if you didn't have to go into the armed services, how many Israelis would? Like what? Like meaning those who are passionate and they want to defend their country, and they're zealots, and they're everything that the Israeli government tells us that all their young people are. I wonder what percentage of young people would choose to sign up rather than be forced to. So are those people turned around as well because they're embarrassed? They actually don't want to be a part of it.
They have conscription over there, and if you don't go into the military, you go to prison. And yes, that's hard, but this is a hard choice. There is a moral imperative now. I hope their prisons are busting at the seams of people that are going, no, I'm not going to do this. I know that that's hoping against hope, but fuck, I wouldn't.
Well, here you go.
Jesus.
Well, even with that, Chewy, even with those threats over their head, a third of Israeli youth do not enlist in the IDF. Nearly half of Israeli youth do not start or finish their military service, with at least a third of males getting exemptions for mental health reasons. The alarming figures based on IDF data first published show that 32.9% of men will receive an exemption from the army, with an average 15% dropping out during service. Nearly half of all men do not complete their military service. Well, they're not the exact numbers I'm looking for. I'd like to know if it was a free and fair and they just wanted to go in, but I don't know, maybe they're also working the system. You know how in the old conscription days, they'd talk about doing things like rubbing shit on yourself in the middle of the thing to try and get a Section 8. Maybe they're
Bone
using the
spurs.
system. Bone spurs, yeah, bone spurs. On which foot? Can't remember. I can't remember. Can't remember which foot. All right, team. Thank you for being with us tonight. Is there anything in the star chat we need to get to, Because I'm about to load up the outro.
I will have a look at that, but while we've been discussing this, because the patrons are so generous,
do we get our 44,000 per person?
I don't know, but we're on our way, and I think we're at the research stage.
Have you ordered it? It's like Airbnb. Yet. You can order it, and then you can get your money back if it doesn't come through. Is one of those.
I mean, this is what catches me. It's impressive and desirable.
This must be like the ferries, how you can like order a ferry, and then when you cancel it, 2 years later, it doesn't cost anything, I don't think. So you should just do that. That'd be fine.
Yeah, I'll add to our watch list. Right, as far as super chats here, it's tad insensitive to shoot kids too, you monster. Mr. Free Speech sounds like Mr. Like the sound of my own voice, even when he makes no sense.
The founder of the Free Speech Union.
Let's talk to John TG. I think he has thoughts. Robbie with late fee. Ooh, Sean Plunkett. You can request a refund at the end of the show. Can we please stop calling Seymour Rimmer? Rimmer had the courtesy of being dead, also redeemed himself by the end of the show. Please watch Red Dwarf. I'm going to admit, you had me in the first half.
Yeah.
Brilliant comment. Thank you.
I was just double checking that the founder was Toby Young, because it might have been the founder in the UK, but no. I've looked up the Free Speech Union. Started 5 years ago. The founder was Toby Young. He is so everything you know and think about the Free Speech Union, what they say they stand for. That interview smashes all of it. It's all, and we've told you for a long time, it's all bullshit. All of it. Israel is the thing that broke their brains. Israel is the thing that hopefully enough sensible people now see the bullshit that it's not what it says on the label. It's just not. Was that all the super chats? Oh, yeah.
That is it.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll be back tomorrow night for another episode. I'm going to try and get Ash Sarkar on. What are my chances, you reckon? 3/5 of fuck all?
Oh, fuck, I hope so.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? It's good to the people in the UK. It's good because it's the time frame works, because it's 12 hours. So come and have a chat with us one breakfast time. Ash, that'd be nice. You can re-educate us. I'm happy to be re-educated in that system. I mean, isn't it ridiculous what he described? And he thinks that's just normal and not propagandized at all. What a moron. All right, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow night, I guess.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a war path to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by both Chewy and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's big hairy news.
Nothing too much else to add to that, Chewy. You want to throw anything out there at the end?
I'm just going to paraphrase a meme I'm looking at. While Western media debated what was at the UK's Glastonbury Music Festival, the IDF killed 200 people in 3 days.
It was supposed to be a bit of an up note on the end of the show there, Chewy. Not that, but thank you for that. All right, guys, we'll catch you live again tomorrow night from 9. Be safe, be well. See you all then. Hooroo!
Cheers, fam.